Hello and welcome to Under the Radar. I am your host, Sammy Bovitz. Sorry for the little 2-week break, but we are back and better than ever. This is one of the episodes that I am most excited about, probably one that I've been most excited about since the very first episode I had. This has given me the most excitement personally, since the Buccaneers got to the NLCS after I featured them in my first episode. I'm not going to give myself too much credit there, but I would like to say that this week's episode is going to be tons of fun for two reasons. The Buccaneers are going to be great, and I'm going to get to them obviously later on in the show. But what I would like to say is the two things that I'm most excited about is the Brooklyn Nets, and I'll give you a little background on them as I start it. But the MLB free agency preview. I'm going to preface that as well. It's going to just be a whole big I'm not going to preface you guys too much in the show. We're going to jump right in a second. But I would just like to say, just sorry about the whole technical difficulties and everything. So I'm glad we finally got a show done. And finally, we are going to wrap up Season 1 here of Under the Radar on December 9th. Obviously, all the teams are TBD for the next few weeks. But we're going to have a couple more episodes, not December 9th, but we're going to have a few more episodes, and then we're going to wrap up, let me double check when exactly. Yes, it is December 9th when we are going to be wrapping up. So this episode, we're going to take I think might record another episode, otherwise we might have a hiatus for Thanksgiving. And then we're going to have another episode and a final episode, coming in the final episode of the season is going to come on December 9th. Then I'm going to take a quick hiatus for something called the State Sports Special, which I've told you guys tons and tons about. And I'm going to use that as sort of my wrap-up for the end of the show. And then Season 2 Under the Radar, which, again, is going to be super exciting, is going to kick off on January 6th. Of course, on Spreaker and Spotify. So, let's jump right into our first team. And I'm going to preface this by saying I've wanted to do the Brooklyn Nets for a long time. The Nets have been a fleeting interest for me for a very long time, and it started somewhat inexplicably because, I moved from Los Angeles, one great city, to New York, another great city, at the age of 9 years old, and immediately, as a sports fan, I immediately started researching all the sports teams. I knew stuff about them, but I sort of locked on them a little bit more. And a team that my dad and I could immediately take interest in was the Brooklyn Nets, because they had low price tickets and a cool new arena and some interesting players like Joe Johnson and Darren Williams. And so we started going to the games, and then the Nets got a lot worse and became the worst team in the NBA. But we still went to the games, and I always found them fascinating because they're not spectacularly bad in a way that the 76ers were a few years ago, but they're not good at all yet. So I think they're a very interesting team, and I'm just going to talk about their. Obviously, I'm going to start by going through their depth chart. Right now, I will say this. Right now, their backup shooting guard is listed to be Karis LeVert. That is currently not true. He recently got injured and will be out 2 to 3 months with a foot injury. And what I am going to say about Karis LeVert before we move on to the team's current active players is that Karis LeVert was a dynamic player, and he was, in my opinion, the NBA's most improved player until he broke his foot. And obviously it could have been much worse, but it was a terrible injury, so it broke the Nets fan inside of me, is what I'll say. Karis LeVert is a very good player, and I think I might have a whole episode about him when I start running out of NBA teams, because he's a player of such a great interest to me that I think that he might be very interesting for Under the Radar to look at and follow down the line, and that's what I'll be doing. I may start launching full Karis LeVert reports, because Karis LeVert, he's a dynamic player. If you ever have time to watch a film of him, you should. He's a generational talent, in my opinion. He's no Ben Simmons as far as generational talent, as far as young future of NBA, but Karis LeVert is definitely a name you should remember. Karis LeVert. Moving on to the rest of the team, the Nets have had a habit, and they still do, of acquiring bad players with even worse contracts. That includes guys like Alan Crabb, DeMarre Carroll, Kenneth Faried, I would say, and then and among other people, but I do want to focus on the bright spots here for a second. D'Angelo Russell has been tabbed as the future of the Brooklyn Nets franchise since he was acquired on draft night 2017. He was traded for guys like Brook Lopez and Kyle Kuzma, which I don't know if it was the greatest decision by the Nets personnel, but you know what? We'll see what happens, because the one main thing is D'Angelo Russell is a free agent this offseason. And the important thing to note about that is that Russell, he really Russell is a very interesting how do I put this? Russell is a very good player. He was selected number 2 overall by those same Lakers, and that's why that happened in the trade. But of course, the fact that he's a free agent means trouble for the Nets, because they're probably going to have to dole out a lot of money. Seeing as most of their bad contracts are set to expire this season or next, fine, they'll have enough money, sure. But I will say this: the Nets will have to be careful at how much money they want to spend, because my prediction for D'Angelo Russell this offseason is that he may want to join a newly formed super team, or become a final piece in one out in the West, or even elsewhere in the East. So I think a team might try to lure him as, hey, we're going to be like our third star. Sort of like how Kevin Love was heavily recruited by the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I'm not saying D'Angelo Russell is Kevin Love, but I am going to say that D'Angelo Russell is a point guard, a score first point guard, but a point guard nonetheless, and a player that teams would want as a third star. But the Nets want him as their primary star. So we'll see what happens, and that's gonna be huge. And I'm gonna get to that more later. But I do want to talk about his backup in Spencer Dinwiddie. And Spencer Dinwiddie is, for my money, one of the best bench players in the entire National Basketball Association. And you could argue with me for days on this, but I'm going to stand my ground, because Spencer Dinwiddie has been one of the most efficient players in the NBA coming off the bench. Like, he scores 15, 20 points a night, and he never starts. Spencer Dinwiddie is an amazing player, and honestly, I think he should start alongside Russell. I don't know how that would work. Point guard, shooting guard, point guard. But obviously, Spencer Dinwiddie had a very big coming out party last year. I think he still should have been in the running for most improved player. I think that's going to be an award the Nets may get more and more over the next couple of years. And Dinwiddie really is a great player, and you know, he kind of had a sort of coming out party on All-Star Saturday Night last year, in 2018, where he won the Skills Challenge, which is a very forgotten contest in comparison to the now iconic 3-point and slam dunk contest, but it's still a very interesting competition, and I love it personally. So if you're, I mean, honestly, under the radar contest right there. If I do so myself, the Taco Bell. I don't even know. I don't know why I mentioned the corporate name, but the Skills Challenge is very interesting, and I think Dinwiddie winning that kind of was the bright spot of the Nets season, to be honest. But I digress. I'm gonna talk about some other more interesting players the Nets have gotten, because the Nets have actually made some not smart, but interesting, sort of savvy trades this offseason. Getting guys like Ed Davis, Shabazz Napier, some solid bench guys that I think they could just keep as a solid foundation. They didn't have a first round pick, I don't think. They did get Kenneth Faried, which I thought was very interesting. Because Faried was a former Nuggets player, and people thought he was going to be a potential star. And the main story surrounding him was, where is he going to get traded and when? Kenneth Faried on the trading block was something you would see at NBA 2K, in trade rumors all the time. Faried was getting publicly criticized, privately criticized, and of course vice versa as far as the Nuggets ownership and front office went. But obviously, Faried no longer had a fit in a system that has Nikola Jokic. Hopefully I said that right. Nikola Jokic, I believe it is. But Mr. Faried is very interesting. He is listed as the backup center, which fine. okay, but he is 6'10", I believe. So I'm not sure if that's he is, I'm pretty sure he's 6'10". Yeah, he's 6'10". And then, but the thing is, the Nets are taking it small to another level, because normally teams start with at least one big, over 7 feet tall or higher, on the floor for tip-off. But Jared Allen is 6'11", and if an inch seems small to you, which it is, I'm going to say that, it is definitely a small. Think about this. Think about, let's say, you and your brother, it doesn't matter if you don't have a brother, but let's say you and your brother are both 11 years old or whatever, and your mom you're going back to back at the urging of your friends. Your brother is an inch taller than you. How does that make you feel? Like, that's basically the situation. Being 6'11" means being bullied by guys that could be bigger, that might be power forwards. Like, for example, if you're 6'11" like Jared Allen, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is your height, is coming towards you, then that's not going to bode well for the guys that are even taller than him. And guys like Kristaps Porzingis, Joel Embiid, who can do it, Nikola Jokic, who can do it all. I don't know if Jared Allen's going to hold up to that. And obviously, they're just being biased and going to one game. But last year I saw a Nets game in which Jared Allen fouled a lot and pretty much blew the Nets a chance at a win. And I know this is a small sample size, 1 quarter, 1 game, whatever. But it did show me that Jared Allen is not exactly the most prominent guy when it comes to fouls. Even when I went against the 76ers, where they won by 25 points a couple of weeks ago, Embiid was notably quiet, I will say that, but Jared Allen had 3 or 4 fouls, I believe. So Jared Allen has tons of flaws, tons of upside, but just a very interesting center, and something that I'm going to be very interested to see how the center experiment being conducted rather in Brooklyn is going to turn out. The next guy I do want to discuss is Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. Mr. Hollis-Jefferson was, I believe, one of the Nets' few first-round picks of recent years. The Nets finally get their first-round pick back in this year's draft, and I believe Rondae was one of the Nets' very few first-round picks, and Hollis-Jefferson was selected somewhat like quietly for like a first-round pick kind of guy. He played 3 years, which is more than most, but he was selected in the 2015 NBA draft, which, just for reference, has a class that includes the same D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, Kristaps Porzingis, Justice Winslow, Miles Turner, Devin Booker, Terry Rozier. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson was selected ahead of guys like Larry Nance Jr., Cedi Osman, Montrezl Harrell, Willie Hernan-Gomez, Norman Powell. Not a ton of notable guys, I would say. Quinn Cook, that's notable. Trevion Graham, both of them went undrafted. But the point is, Hollis-Jefferson was selected in a loaded 2015 class. 2015 draft was something I will get to later with the Bucks. But Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, as far as height goes, has been experimented with more and more as the starting small forward, as an oversized small forward. And I don't think the Nets are trying to go all Giannis with Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, but he does have a unique skill set. He can do some long range work. He can definitely do dirty work. I don't know about him going against men that are much bigger than him. But I don't know. I really haven't seen much of Hollis-Jefferson of late. But I think guys like Ron Hollis-Jefferson and Joe Harris, who we'll get to in a second, will definitely get more opportunities now that Caris LeVert is gone. Caris LeVert was the keystone of the Nets' offense. I'm going to say that. And he was spectacular. And I think he's really shown flashes, and I hope he comes back 100% because he's the future of the Nets franchise right now. I will say that. But it does give people more opportunities at the wing positions and the big positions with LeVert gone. And the next guy I do want to talk about, which you guys heard me mention was one Joe Harris, and Joe Harris has kind of been in and out of the starting lineup. The starting lineup in the Nets on the Nets roster, other than Jared Allen and D'Angelo Russell and formerly Karis LeVert, has kind of been up in the air. There's no real five-man unit that has established itself in a way like the Warriors starting five does, but it's the Warriors, so I guess that doesn't really matter that much. But there's no clear, these are the best players available for our starting lineup. So Joe Harris is an interesting wing player. He's not that good, particularly. He's pretty unremarkable, but he can do some dirty work, and I do applaud him for that. And I do want to actually look at my old friend Spot Rack again for the Nets. How do I put this? The Nets. How the Nets are paying their players, because the Nets, the Brooklyn Nets have not done so well. So they're paying the 13th most in the NBA. Wait a second. What? Oh, that's the cap space. So estimated cap space. So how much space do they have? The Nets have negative $14 million in cap space, which kind of is terrible because when you're a team like the Nets, you're not supposed to have that little. So Allen Crabbe has a $18.5 million contract. DeMar Carroll has a $15 million contract, and Kenneth Faried has a $13 million contract. So all of those guys are either past their prime or almost entering it, so they're not going to get much better. It's not like Allen Crabbe is going to become Steph Curry overnight. Everybody else has relatively small contracts. No one else has a contract above $10 million. Allen Crabbe, though, he's going to be under contract for this year and next year. So sorry, I thought he was going to be out after this year. DeMar Carroll is going to be out next during free agency, so he's not going to return. Kenneth Faried is going to be out next year, so that amount of cap space. So about $28 million in cap space is going to be released. Jared Dudley also has a big contract. He is going to be gone after this season as well. Joe Harris is also going to be a free agent soon, relatively soon, but soon. No one else really of note. Karis LeVert, though, I do want to look at his contract for a moment. He's going to be under contract for 2 more years, after which he'll be a restricted free agent. And I think the Nets, if he keeps playing like this, will match any offer given. And the 2018 and 2019 club options were exercised. So he's going to be around for a while. D'Angelo Russell, however, is 22 years old. And, he's going to be a free agent. Okay. So they gave him a qualifying offer for next year, which he may or may not take. Okay, so he's going to be a free agent in a restricted free agent. And they already put out a qualifying offer for him for free agency, but he is going to be a restricted free agent this year. So that's what makes me interested. Like, what happens to D'Angelo Russell? Who do they decide is the future of the franchise? Is it Russell? Is it LeVert? Is it Jared Allen? What direction do they go with this franchise? Do they go free agency, or do they try to get as many picks as they can? Because the Nets, once next summer hits, are going to be in a very, very awkward situation with a hole they dug themselves with a terrible trade that I think I'm going to talk about in a whole separate section of Under the Radar. And the Nets, they're going to have a very, very interesting and terrible predicament. I honestly think they should start making some moves now, so that they have more cap space next summer to maybe start a build around. But I'm going to be honest, who knows if that's going to happen. And with that, I think we are going to move on to our second and really final team. Because, folks, today we're going to do a free agency preview, and I'm going to explain how that's going to work when we, it's going to be relatively simple, but I'm going to explain how that's going to work once that goes down. But I am going to start talking about the Buccaneers. I am going to start, though, by talking about how they played today. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers got the job done, I believe. They didn't get the job done. What am I saying? They the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they didn't quite get the job done against the Giants today. I was watching most of the game today. The score was 35-38, and I was already planning to talk about the Buccaneers' very wild and very weird quarterback saga, but today provided me with even more material. So the game started relatively slowly. The score was 14-7 at the half. It was a relatively quiet first half. Then the Giants kind of jump out a little bit. Fitzpatrick had already thrown some interceptions, so he threw three interceptions by the time when the curtain had barely risen on the second half. And then Jameis Winston was called in, and he orchestrated a pretty big comeback. Not a huge comeback, not like a 28-3 comeback per se. Sorry, Falcons fans. But a pretty remarkable fight, considering the whole Ryan Fitzpatrick had dug the Buccaneers midway through the third quarter or so, I believe. So the Giants did hold on for a 38-35 win. Jameis Winston got very close, though, so nobody really knows what the quarterback situation is for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I would like to say right now, according to ESPN, and this is according to ESPN, of course, so that nothing's set in stone. ESPN is never the most accurate barometer for breaking news. Normally it is, but I've seen sometimes when things have gone wrong at ESPN. Right now, it lists Jameis Winston as the starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's bad. They say that Fitzpatrick is the backup, and that's what people thought for a while. People thought, well, Jameis Winston was, folks, just a reminder, Jameis Winston was, sorry, I gotta remind you guys that Jameis Winston was suspended for the first 3 games for a crime that is not good, and I really don't want to talk about on this show. Trying to kind of keep it rated G. So he was suspended for 3 games. Ryan Fitzpatrick, as the backup, took his spot and decided to start the first 3 games. And he played for some reason really well. And he was not so good he was not so good in week 3. Nobody really knows why, but he still got the nod for game 4. And he was playing with, it's pretty much been back and forth ever since. There hasn't been huge drama, but as far as that, it's just been back and forth. But today, I think it was especially interesting. Especially the Buccaneers are at the bottom, and they were fighting so hard against these Giants, and then they just fell apart, and Jameis Winston came in and almost saved the day. Remember, guys, Jameis Winston was the number 1 overall pick of the 2015 draft. The number 1 overall pick. Number 2 that year was Marcus Mariota, and it was a huge debate leading up to that draft. Winston or Mariota. Most people were saying Winston, so that wasn't a surprise for some people. But some people were saying Mariota, so some people thought it was a mistake. But I would like to say this. Here are the selections for the first round. Dante Fowler Jr. was selected 3rd overall. Amari Cooper was selected 4th. These are all the players selected after Jameis Winston. Mariota, Dante Fowler, Amari Cooper, notable players. Leonard Williams, Vic Beasley. Number 10, the St. Louis Rams selected Todd Gurley. Number 14, Devontae Parker. Number 15, Melvin Gordon. Marcus Peters selected 18th. Nelson Aguilar, number 20. Shaq Thompson by the Panthers. Brashad Perryman. Philip Dorsett by the Colts. Landon Collins in the 2nd round. T.J. Yeldon in the 2nd round. Devin Funchess in the 2nd round. Amir Abdullah in the 2nd round. David Johnson, I believe, was somewhere in here. I think, I'm pretty sure David Johnson's somewhere in there. Frank Clark, Tyler Lockett, Tevin Coleman. I'm going way too far down, but you get the idea. Guys like Todd Gurley and Vic Beasley, Leonard Williams, Amari Cooper, Marcus Mariota, Melvin Gordon were all selected after Jameis Winston being selected 1st overall. If I'm the Buccaneers, that's my question. If I'm the Buccaneers, do I change, and I know what's about to happen, do I select Todd Gurley 1st overall? I'm not sure, because who knows what people will say at the time. I will say this, though. Doug Martin kind of fell apart. Partly the reason why the Buccaneers fell so hard, but I do want to talk about the rest of their depth chart right now. So Peyton Barber has been, I'll give it to him, a very solid running back for the Buccaneers, just not a great one. Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans are a very good duo, and people were buying very high on the Buccaneers. So I did too. I selected Jameis Winston and Mike Evans in my NFL draft, in my fantasy football draft in 2017. I reached on Winston a little bit in like the 5th or 6th round, but it's safe to say that did not go well. They have 2 good tight ends. Just moving on, they have 2 good tight ends in Cameron Bright and O.J. Howard. A very bad offensive line. But what I do want to talk about, and I think the main thing we need to focus on, is their defense is really bad. Like, really, really bad, guys. Gerald McCoy is solid. Vita Vea is a first-round pick, and rightfully so. Jason Pierre-Paul is kind of washed up. Chris Conte was a solid safety, but then he kind of got injured. Brent Grimes and Vernon Hargreaves are mediocre to okay cornerbacking duo, but everything else is just... This defense does not have any big names, does not have anybody that really makes me care about them. I mean, Gerald McCoy and Vita Vea are a very solid D-tackle duo. And I guess Jason Pierre-Paul, I think he's like 30 though, right? How old is Jason Pierre-Paul? Jason Pierre-Paul was a former giant, and he was a star. He was good for a long time. So he's 29 years old. So he's basically he's almost at the 30 mark, which people think is terrible when you're in the NFL. 30 is a pretty much a death mark if your name isn't Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, or Tom Brady, or a kicker, obviously. But this defense, like, honestly, I know I'm kind of moping over it for a second, but I do want to say this. If you're an NFL team right now, and you have to pick and if I'm a person, and I could pick both teams. I could pick the offense, defense, if I had to play a game for my life, and I had to choose my offense and defense, and I could choose my personal offense and defense, and the other team's offense and defense, here's what I would do. I would probably do... Man, I don't know. I guess the Chiefs' offense barely over the Rams' offense, because overall it's better. Hate to say it, but, you know, Todd Gurley just isn't enough against the Chiefs. The Chiefs' offense, I would choose the Jaguars. I don't know. Jaguars' defense hasn't been so good. I guess, I'm going to go with the Jaguars' defense for now. Like, last year's Jaguars' defense. Like, you know what I'm trying to say. I'll go with the Saints' defense. The Saints' defense. For the other team's offense, I'm going to go with... Man, the Jets? Yeah, the Jets. And honestly, if I had to pick a defense, like, the point is, if I had to pick a defense to play against, for my dream team to play against, for my life, I would choose the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. Like, this defense is bad. Like, it's full of professional players, but, like, I'm just gonna stop hating on their defense, and I'm gonna explain something for a second. These players all worked very, very hard to even get here and get on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. But remember, this is the National Football League. All defenses are like that. All defenses are full of those guys. Is this defense? And this defense may be filled with the least amount of elite players in the league. Vita Vea and Gerald McCoy may become a absolutely lethal tackle duo someday when Vita Vea becomes more mature. Right now, this defense is bad, and it's going to get worse when Hargreaves and Grimes start to get older, when Jason Pierre-Paul stops really being good, when Gerald McCoy decides he wants to go somewhere else, which he's kind of already expressed, and when Vita Vea turns out to be the only playmaker on that defense. So I would like to move on though to the QB crisis that is still going on in Tampa Bay. And it's been mocked, and it's been ridiculed, and it's been analyzed, scrutinized, everything. But I do want to bring in a new angle to this. And that angle is, I mean, I don't know if you guys want me to say this, but it is really the entire franchise. Jameis Winston is younger. He was the number 1 overall pick. He was the face of the franchise for a long time. People thought he was going to take a quantum leap last year. But he really didn't. He got worse, definitely. This year, Winston gets suspended. People start questioning his character. Fitzpatrick comes in, does amazing, and then he keeps throwing interceptions. It reminds me of his short-lived tenure with the Jets. People like Fitzpatrick do well for a certain amount of time, then defenses figure him out, and then he gets smacked again, gets a few interceptions again, gets smacked around. And I think, honestly, this endless cycle will go around and around. And honestly, I was thinking the Buccaneers should have arguably tried to reach for a guy like Lamar Jackson. Maybe. Trade down and get Lamar Jackson last year's draft. I saw so many teams that needed a QB last year. Wait, and nobody selected Lamar Jackson. And it was pretty much a miracle that Lamar Jackson fell to number 32 in the Ravens. But, with that said, the way that let's say the Buccaneers don't add any more notable quarterbacks and keep both Fitzpatrick and Winston on for next season. Let's say that happens. That's going to determine the rest of the franchise. What do they choose? Because Winston is like 24, 25, I believe, and he's not getting any younger. You need to decide now, are you going to develop Winston and be dedicated to him as the face of the franchise and build your offense around him? Or do you stick with Fitzpatrick and try to find a different quarterback? But you got to choose one or the other. Or trade Winston is what I meant. And use Fitzpatrick as a placeholder. But if you're going to trade Winston, get good value for him. Don't trade him like the Ty Montgomery for a 7th round pick. They need to find good value for Winston, so that means they need to let the market come to them. Then, after they trade Winston and that's done, they need to find a top pick. And I don't think they'll have a problem with doing that because I believe they own their own pick. If they can get a franchise QB in this year or next year's draft, that will help the franchise in such a huge way. However, I don't know what the answer is right now. Because they do have Evans, they do have Jackson, they do have Barber, they do have Braid, they do have Howard. They have a solid skills position team already in place. They just need a quarterback. And who is their quarterback? No one seems to realize. No one seems to know. So that's what I'm going to leave you guys with. And really, tell me at undertheradar@gmail.com, who do you think is the true starting quarterback for the Milwaukee Bucks? I mean, what did I say, the Milwaukee Bucks? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know why I said Milwaukee Bucks, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because, you know what, honestly, I'm not sure who it is at this point. And this next experiment, if you will, for the next 25 minutes or so, I compiled a list fairly recently of a bunch of free agents that I find very fascinating going into this offseason. And nothing really notable has happened yet. I mean, David Freese resigned. Steve Pierce resigned. No big splashes have been made yet at the time of this broadcast. However, I'm not going to be going. I had two or three restrictions for myself. The first restriction was don't go for who are considered the best players available. Harper, Machado, Corbin. Don't talk about them. Corbin was the top pitching free agent. Harper and Machado or Harper and Machado. Also, I made it a rule for myself not to talk about the Miami Marlins. Well, no, I didn't make a rule for myself. I was going to break that rule. Never mind. I also made it a rule for myself to just, I don't know. How do I put this? I made it a rule for myself to just not cover any of the high-profile ones or ones that people have already covered. And if I'm covering more high-profile ones, which I will be, not like extremely high-profile, but relatively high-profile, I'm going to not focus on the biased angle that people are going to put up. It's going to be biased, but it's at least going to be respectfully biased. And with that, I'm going to jump into my first player, and this is kind of going to be breaking that second rule, but I digress. I do want to talk about Adrian Beltre for a second. Adrian Beltre is 40 years old. He's played with the Rangers for basically his entire career. A stint with the Dodgers, but that didn't end well at all. So basically, he's only going to be remembered as a Ranger is the point, except for ones that got away, dreamers in Los Angeles. But he's been a career Ranger, and he got like a standing ovation, I believe, in the last home game, whatever. Where does Adrian Beltre go? Like, does he retire? He's 40 years old. He's had a fruitful career. He hasn't had a World Series championship with the Rangers. That's not going to happen, unfortunately, very soon. But does Adrian Beltre sign on for one more year? And if he does sign with the Rangers, for how long and for how much money? What do the Rangers want to do, and where are they really going? Because the Rangers are only trending in any particular sort of direction. I would say rebuilding, but I'm not entirely sure. The other thing I do want to say about Beltre is that he may not want to stay with the Rangers, and if so, where is he going to go? For reference, Adrian Beltre, who I was talking about, I don't know why I said his name. Adrian Beltre is from oh my god, I don't he has been with he was with the Dodgers for a little bit, so he's going to go back to the Dodgers. I don't know if the Dodgers are not necessarily going to want him. And I have a lot more to go, so I'm going to blow through them relatively quickly. Josh Donaldson is 33 years old, and he might experience the same effect that J.D. Martinez and Eric Hosmer experienced, or the same fate that we thought J.D. Martinez and Eric Hosmer experienced before they signed their big contracts. Is Josh Donaldson going to get a big contract and get way overpaid like Eric Hosmer, or is he going to be relatively trashed and tossed aside like a Jose Bautista? Daniel Murphy is interesting. He's 34. He was a bright spot on two very weird teams. The Nationals were weird. Daniel Murphy was still a solid, steady player. And then the Cubs were weird, and Daniel Murphy was not at fault for that. But Daniel Murphy was a good player playing on two very weird teams. Cody Allen and Zach Britton are two relievers that I would classify as reduced role, but also recognized. As in, they're not as glorified as guys like Chapman for the Yankees or being an Oriole for the Orioles, or Andrew Miller for the Indians, who I decided not to include. But they're relatively overshadowed free agents is how I would describe them. So I don't know what the value of a reliever is, a late innings reliever in the MLB is anymore. I don't know what the value of a starter is anymore, which I'll get to in a moment. But it's going to be a very weird season, weird off season, I think, as far as how much money people are going to get and who's going to get roster spots first. What are going to be the priorities for Major League Baseball? Okay, so the next one I do want to talk about is Carlos Gonzalez. He is a pretty big legend in Colorado, but he's 33. The Colorado's chasing a title. Is Gonzalez part of that plan? And I think it's a younger Adrian Beltre sort of situation for Gonzalez, so I think that's going to be a very interesting offseason for him. Like, where is he going to go? The next one is a bit surprising, even for me. It's Jed Lowry of the, formerly, for now at least, of the Oakland A's. People have described him as like a fit for everyone, and then there's another guy who also has been described like that too. But I do want to know what his market value is going to be, as far as like what do people think he's going to do, as far as how much money is he going to get, how much is his breakout season in Oakland going to be assessed? Are people going to accept him as, okay, he's a star now, or that's probably a fluke and not pay him as much, or is he just going to not care about the money and go back to the A's? That's my question. So it's going to be a weird season. I remember Mike Moustakas was one of the more hyped up free agents in this year's in when we talk about 2019's free agent class is amazing, blah blah blah. And Mike Moustakas was always named mentioned after Harper, Machado, and Kershaw for some reason. Moustakas kind of was traded on up to a very weird spot in Milwaukee, which I'm not really sure where they go after all this. So I think Mike Moustakas is going to be interesting because I really don't know where he's going to go. Is he going to just go right back to the Royals like he uneventfully did last year? Or is he actually going to sign a long-term contract somewhere else? I'm kind of rooting for him to sign somewhere unexpected so I can analyze that and possibly talk about it with you guys in a future episode. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see where he goes and how teams react to Mike Moustakas is on the market. Are we going to sign him? The next thing I want to talk about is Matt Harvey. He has just such an enigmatic career, and I really do feel bad for him after all he's gone through. Being traded to the Reds, being really terrible in any situation he's been given beyond the Tommy John surgery. And he's going to have a very, very weird off-season. And I really do think this about Harvey because, how do I put this? I really feel this about Harvey because, is he going to stay around? Is the pure thinking. People have seen what Matt Harvey's been able to do, and he's shown flashes that he can go back to his original Mets dominating All-Star game starting for some reason form. Will that happen in the near future or ever? We don't know. Will people take a chance on him? That's what I want to know. Because if Harvey signs with a high-profile playoff contending team, maybe not playoff guaranteed team, as people think, but a team like the Phillies, the Rockies, the D-backs that are on the fringe of playoff contention, how is that going to affect that team? Is it going to make it worse? Or is Matt Harvey just all of a sudden going to make things even better in that situation? I think that's going to be very interesting to see what happens to him. And will he retire? Where will he go? What's my question mainly? To just sum up, my question mainly is what's next for the man that is Matt Harvey? The next one I do want to talk about, and it's kind of because I'm a Dodgers fan, is Brian Dozier, because the Dodgers aren't going to sign Logan Forsythe back. We know that. Also, Chase Utley, he retired. We know that. Max Muncy may not be a full-time second baseman. We know that. My question is, does Brian Dozier sign back with the Dodgers? He had a very up-and-down couple of months in L.A., but I think the Dodgers should definitely sign him back. I think he was a very under-the-radar player, underrated, really, when he was with the team, because people thought he was not good, average, whatever, OBP, etc. But I think just the pure value he brought to the pure spark he brought to the team on any night gave the team its first real leadoff hitter pretty much the whole season. They had guys like Jock Peterson and David Freese leading off even in the playoffs. So I think Brian Dozier was much more mercurial and great, really spark plug to the top of the Dodgers order. So I thought that was very interesting that he went to the Dodgers. So, you know what, we'll see. He's a very old school kind of guy, so I do want to see where he goes. The next guy also kind of fits the any team would want him, blah, blah, blah sort of category. And that is Marwin Gonzalez. He was a super utility player for the Astros. People thought he was integral to that World Series 2017 run. And while I don't disagree with him, I think people do kind of over dramatize his role in that championship. But he is a very big super utility guy, and the value of the super utility guy has somewhat increased even more. Guys like Kike Hernandez, Marwin Gonzalez, they have proved integral, invaluable in any situation. I think that's the point of utility players in the first place. But Marwin Gonzalez and guys like Kike, when he becomes a free agent, have shown they can truly be the best in the business. And if some team could overpay for him and his role, which I think might happen, likely for me outside of the Astros, I think Marwin Gonzalez may be taking his utility player talent somewhere else. And I would love to see what happens with that, and I really want to see what happens to the utility player in Major League Baseball over the next 5-10 years. And then, of course, I have a few more. I'm going to wrap it up in about 10 minutes. We're going to start wrapping up in about 10 minutes, but I do have a few more that I want to talk about. Logan Morrison is one. I think he's very interesting. He was kind of the forgotten MLB All-Star starter in 2017. People don't remember this, but he was, I believe, batting eighth and playing and was DH starting in the 2017 All-Star game, which I found incredible and extremely weird. But he's quietly been really good. Like, it's very, very weird. And I'm going to talk about another guy's been a lot of guys that have been quietly very good in the next few minutes. But does somebody overpay for him this season? Like, is he going to become a piece of a contender? How will people value him as much as teams have before, or will Morrison sign another 1 year, $10 million deal somewhere and hope that it works? Like, Logan Morrison is a very high value player and a very solid power hitter, and power had become more and more valuable in Major League Baseball today. So where does that put him on the spectrum of this wild offseason? The next one I do want to talk about is Nick Markakis. He was again another quiet all-star starter, surprising all-star starter for the National League this year, actually. And I think he was still quietly very good since then. Even during the NLDS, arguably against the Dodgers, he proved invaluable at certain points during the division series, even though they only won one game. Markakis did show flashes, and I do think Markakis was a bit overvalued during the Orioles days, but he went from overrated to extremely underrated when he was with the Braves, and he had a very good season over there. So I do want to see, much like a guy like Logan Morrison, I do want to see what his value on the market is, what people will think of a guy like him. And the next guy I want to discuss is David Robertson. He was, again, another quietly good player in the Yankees bullpen. I believe he is the first player ever, I'm pretty sure this is it, that he has averaged 10K per nine over the past 10 seasons, which I think is incredible. Also, he's, I believe, like 34 or 35 years old. So, again, the old reliever in Major League Baseball is becoming increasingly a very weird asset that people debate a lot about, and especially with the whole Brad Ziegler thing with everybody trying to acquire him. That everybody saying the Dodgers should. The Diamondbacks eventually did, but they didn't make the playoffs. And I believe Ziegler retired, but he was 39. But the point is, Robertson has this role as a veteran reliever that's very reliable for late innings. But it's also like, wow, how much is he going to get? Will he be able to swing a deal like Rich Hill did with the Dodgers in 2017? Or will he be stuck in the mud with another 1 year, $10 million deal somewhere? That's my question. The final thing, another one I do want to discuss is Irvin Santana. Sorry, I'm just going to take a second. Sorry, it's kind of been rapid fire. Of course, you can go back and see the ones you've missed, but this is just a rapid fire free agent preview, and I may do a part 2 the next week, but we'll see. Irvin Santana is a very interesting, people have thought he's been the ace of the Twins. I wouldn't say that exactly, but he's been a fairly reliable starter, and I believe he's 34 years old as well. So what is his value on the market going to be? How are people going to be interested in him? Is he going to become a part of a playoff rotation? I do want to know, I do think he has the potential to be the next Nathan Eovaldi, Charlie Morton, that sort of thing. If he can make his craft a little bit better, he could become a solid number 3 or number 4 in a playoff rotation. So I think that'll be very interesting to see where he is going to go and what he's going to do. But if he resigns back with the Twins, that pretty much solidifies his zero chance of becoming a World Series champion. Another one, Victor Martinez. He's very interesting. And I think with the Tigers being broken up and all, JD Martinez and such, he's very interesting in my opinion because he's 40 years old. He could retire now, much like Mr. Beltre. But where is he going to go? That's my question. Miguel Cabrera, by the way, just a side note, he's not going anywhere anytime soon. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2024 at the age of 43 years old. He doesn't have an $8 million buyout, but I don't think that's going to happen. He does have a bunch of bonuses, so not all of it's guaranteed, but still. He's going to get $30 million a year for the next several years. So he's not going anywhere anytime soon. So I do want to see what happens to Miggy. However, Mr. Cabrera, is a very interesting player. But back to Victor Martinez, he's 40 years old. He's a designated hitter. He's kind of old. He was not very good. He was okay this season, not great. I do want to see what happens to him just as a player, like Matt Harvey or Adrian Beltre situation. Does he retire? Does he go somewhere else? Does he ring chase? Does he sign one more year with the Tigers? Does he retire? Or does he go one more season, have a farewell tour of sorts, hold his head up high? So that's my question. Hunter Pence is another one. And he's basically the last free agent I want to talk about. A different category is going to pop up in just a different final thing is going to pop up in just a second. But Hunter Pence was a right fielder has been a career giant, and I think he's like 34, 35 years old as well. And Pence, my question is, what happens to him now? The Giants are definitely rebuilding. They're one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. Anyone can see that. But much like the Tigers, what do you do with franchise cornerstones like Pence, like Posey, like Bumgarner? And the fact that Pence is a free agent and that he might go somewhere else is another interesting thing. And I think you guys are kind of sensing a theme here. But I think overall with free agency, there's a lot of weird players that have been great before, and Andrew McCutcheon is another example of that. Maybe I'll get to him in a future episode of Under the Radar. But basically, there's a lot of guys that are on the wrong side of 30 that may not be able to let the market come to them, that may not have all the advantages, that may just stick around on 1-year contracts for the rest of their time in Major League Baseball. A bunch of more places, so we could see a bunch of what could be starting on journeyman careers. So I really am interested to see how that is going to work. And then the last free agent, quote unquote, I want to talk about, and he's not necessarily a free agent, but I felt like he was too interesting for me to leave out. And he's kind of an asterisk again because he's not a free agent, not at all. But JT Realmuto, who is the catcher for the Miami Marlins, poses a very, very interesting dilemma. He is the face of the franchise right now. He's the franchise player right now. He's the only guy, basically, besides Starlin Castro, to actually get merchandise with his name on it that people might actually buy. He's young. He's good. He can hit home runs. He can hit for contact. He can catch. He's an upgraded version of Gary Sanchez, and people have compared him to Yadier Molina. Or slimmer Yadier Molina. But I don't know why, but I feel like my gut is telling me that JT Realmuto is going to be traded this offseason. JT Realmuto is a very interesting and kind of weird player. But Realmuto is Realmuto is Mr. Realmuto is a very good player, a generational talent, but he's the centerpiece and leadoff hitter, possibly number 3 hitter for the Marlins team. And he really is just going to be one of the only, if not the only, bright spot that the Marlins team will have. But if traded, he could be a part of a contending team and be thrust into the limelight for the first time. But then, for the Marlins, all that's left is their prospects, the draft, Starlin Castro, and their amazing new logos and uniforms, which you guys should check out if you haven't already. The blue one's my favorite for some reason. Anyways, JT Realmuto is going to be a very interesting player this offseason, and I think if he's not traded this offseason, in the very near future, during regular season as well, and I think he's going to be a very interesting trade chip. I think he's going to be the next Chris Sale, the next bad player trades bad team trades best player to better team. He's going to be the next face of that debate over the MLB 2019 season. So yeah, that's going to be interesting in my opinion. And you know what? We will see what happens with that. But yeah, that is going to wrap it up, folks, for this week's edition of Under the Radar. Sorry for the long 2-week wait and the long wait for this episode, particularly tonight. But it is finally great. It is so great to get back. And we're going to have an episode, I believe, check my Instagram, obviously, Under the Radar NSR. I may not have an update as far as, are we going to have an episode this week? I'm pretty sure we will record something, but if not, may everybody have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy wherever you go to, enjoy your relatives, enjoy everything. Under the Radar will, if not this week, return in 2 Sundays. And then, of course, the season 2 wraps up December 9th. Season 1 wraps up December 9th. Season 2 kicks off January 6th. The State Sports Special is December 23rd. It's going to be great. The future of Under the Radar is only bright. We're going to have so much fun over the next few weeks as we wrap up Season 1. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this episode, be sure to check every single other one out on Spotify, Spreaker, everything. Email me at undertheradarnsr@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram at undertheradarnsr. And again, my email is undertheradarnsr@gmail.com. If you want to email me with any questions about anything in sports or anything personally, you can email me, and I will answer any comments or questions you have, as long as they're G-rated, at the beginning of my show. So, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next week, or very soon, on Under the Radar.